Sorry, so let's do tariffs. Are you for or against tariffs?
Against the universal tariff. So what's the main metric that he made better off?
What?
What's the main metric that he made better off? GDP, unemployment, inflation? Do you have any idea?
Listen. Listen.
I don't think you do.
One question, and an easy one at that, the kind that any political commentator worth their salt should be able to knock out of the park. Go on, pick any number that's moved in the right direction since your guy took office, and boast. A menu is even provided. GDP, unemployment, inflation, take your pick. And yet what comes back is this stunned look of confusion, and the audience clocks the brain stumble instantly. What we're seeing here is how a case built entirely on a story can survive almost everything on the internet, except a face-to-face challenge for basic facts.
Can you name one country that had a universal tariff on us?
I think there are several countries that
Name
did.
one.
I think there are several countries
Name
that
one.
did. Honestly, I'm not sure, but I think there are several countries that did.
Honestly, I'm not sure.
Why hello my fellow apes, I hope you are well. The man of the moment is Dave Rubin, host of The Rubin Report, a former progressive who left the left around 2016 and has been banking off the anecdote ever since.
I was a lefty, I was a Bernie supporter, the whole thing, but I was never super emotionally attached.
Like most conservative heavyweights, he deals in trajectories and vibes, the grand story of where the West is heading, and he has made a genuinely enviable living avoiding the numbers underneath it. His most memorable recent contribution to political media came in 2024, when the outlet paying him $400,000 a month for videos turned out, per the US Department of Justice, to be a covert Russian influence operation. Rubin insists he had no idea.
I was the victim in this crazy fraud scheme involving Lauren Chen and Tenet Media and everything else.
Oh, you poor thing. By the way, you forgot your briefcase!
And, to be fair, credit where credit is due, that is entirely consistent with everything you're about to see him not know.
Honestly, I'm not sure.
You need to shut the up!
Now, we've already covered one exchange between Dave and Santana from this appearance, in which Dave repeatedly invokes RFK Jr. as a medical authority.
Wait, you're talking about the same one that sniffed coke off a toilet seat and admitted it recently.
Wait, no.
The same one that actually took a dead bear and dropped it in Central Park. The same one that actually chopped the head off a whale. You're citing RFK Jr.?
Yes, I am citing RFK Jr.
No, I don't hear that.
Who's running HHS right now.
Which he shouldn't be, but that's fine.
And this time, we're going to watch him insist that critical evidence simply hasn't arrived yet.
It doesn't happen overnight. These things,
They take time.
Our venue, once again, is Jubilee Surrounded. One commentator in the middle, 20 opponents around the rim, and a clock. Whoever reaches the chair first gets their few minutes face to face. It is, by design, about the most brutal environment the internet has yet devised for a vibes man. No co-host, no cutaway, no hour of runway to narrate the audience somewhere. Just a rotating cast of people who, more often than not, have done the reading. Talking of which, jumping in today is Parker Sedgwick, off the channel Parker Get a Job, and by now something of a legendary Jubilee recurring character. You may remember him irritating Jordan Peterson with a basic hypothetical that Peterson somehow found impossible to answer.
Can there ever be a circumstance logically that lying could save someone?
Yeah, and if you're steeped in sin, you're likely to live in circumstances like that.
I'll give you an example. If you're in Nazi Germany, and it is the case that there's Jewish people in your attic and you're trying to protect them, would you lie to the Nazis?
I would have done everything I bloody well could so I wouldn't be in that situation to begin with.
Or you might remember Parker humiliating Charlie Kirk by arriving with the figures that Charlie claimed to know.
Wait, Trump added more to the debt than Biden-Harris.
That's not true.
8.4 trillion, 4.8 trillion non-COVID related, 4.3 trillion under Biden-Harris, 2.2 trillion non-COVID related.
So it's 9.6 trillion under Biden so far.
What's your source? I give you
the Congressional Budget Office.
No, Committee for Responsible Federal Budget indicates you're wrong.
Basically, Parker arrives with data memorized and the other side's positions mapped. But what he runs on Dave relentlessly is the move this episode is really about. The calm demand for the specific. And the calm is vital. Because this is Dave's claim today.
My next surrounded claim is if you still vote for Democrats in 2026, you're voting for broken cities, broken schools, and broken borders.
Democrats break things. Trump fixes them. That is the story. And Parker's response is to make Dave produce something concrete that would demonstrate it. One metric that's improved. One political concession that was won. He declines every tangent, holds each question still, and allows Dave's inability to answer it to become the answer. What this episode offers, then, is a short course in auditing a story. Dave arrives with an expansive account of what Trump is doing and why it is working. Parker repeatedly converts that story into a checkable claim and asks him to produce the evidence. The discipline lies in holding the question still while the dodges rotate underneath. And the reliable tell, it's the hedge.
I think it's zero. Honestly, I'm not sure, but I think there are several countries that did.
Because this is what conviction sounds like when the facts are finally asked to step forward and don't. We join them at the handshake, and at a question, Dave will spend the rest of his time in this chair trying not to answer.
Nice to meet you.
Hi, how are you?
All right, good. What is one main metric that Donald Trump has made better off since he got in office? So like an example would be GDP, unemployment, inflation, etc.
Straight in. No warm-up, no framing speech, no opening statement about the state of the nation, a handshake, and then immediate interrogation. And yeah, as questions go, this is about the friendliest opening a Trump supporter could hope to receive. It's an invitation to brag. If the administration is the success story Dave's entire media output insists it is, the answers should be queuing up.
An example would be GDP, unemployment, inflation, etc.
Well, right now, first off, the big beautiful bill was just passed last year and it's kicking in now, right? It's kicking in now. Okay, so we're going to now see results of that, like even the tariffs. All right, so let's do tariffs. Are you for or against tariffs?
Dave reaches for legislation, a fair move, so long as you're going to explain how it answers the question. The bill passed last summer, but even Dave acknowledges that there hasn't been any benefit yet.
It's kicking in now, right? It's kicking in now. We're going to now see results of that.
Which means that bringing it up was pointless. You see, the results live in the future, somewhere distant and unquestionable, but the question was about what has already improved, past tense, and Dave's opening bid is an IOU. And the second move arrives before the first has even finished.
So let's do tariffs.
Let's do tariffs, he says, thinking he can use them to interrogate Parker.
All right, let's see it.
So let's do tariffs. Are you for or against tariffs?
Against the universal tariff. So what's the main metric that he made better off?
This right here is the bit that's worth stealing for your conversations. Parker receives the ball and immediately slams it back into Dave's court. The burden is Dave's to fulfill, and it stays that way. Rather than getting into an answer my question first back and forth, the sort that turns these exchanges into noise, Parker quickly states his position and then forces a return to his question. Sure, here's my position. Now, how about that metric?
So what's the main metric that he made better off?
What?
What's the main metric that he made better off? GDP, unemployment, inflation? Do you have any idea?
What? He exclaims. But he heard the question just fine. The issue is that he thought the conversation had already moved on. He was preparing to press Parker on tariffs, expecting the original question to be left behind. But Parker doesn't let it go. He repeats the question and, with it, drags the conversation back. And, perhaps sensing Dave's growing difficulty in processing the exchange, Parker decides to add a little sting into the repetition.
Do you have any idea?
The question is no longer only Trump's record. It's now also whether the man defending the record knows anything about it.
Do you have any idea?
Listen.
I don't think you do.
And he delivers it flat, almost brutally so. Really, it's an observation rather than a taunt, and it lands all the harder as a consequence.
I don't think you do.
Do you think, hold on, so you're arguing that things economically were better under Joe Biden
at the end of his administration, absolutely.
Yeah, so can you give me an example of how?
And here, at last, Dave gets what he's been fishing for, some breathing room. He can't produce a number, so the question becomes Parker's to answer. To put it simply, Dave was asked for evidence that things got better under Trump, and his response is to demand evidence that things were better under Biden. This is shifting the burden of proof, moving the request for evidence onto the person initially demanding some. Parker, though, doesn't have to sit the test. Nothing obliges him to defend the Biden years. Instead, knowing what he's carrying, he accepts the burden on the spot and even narrows it.
At the end of his administration, absolutely.
A scope clause. Basically, he isn't defending 2021's reopening chaos or 2022's inflation spike. He's staking his claim where the data supports it. That is someone who's done the revision and knows which page the answer is on. Dave, if he's paying attention, will recognize the narrowing as a sign. Here's a story where you would expect the facts to just speak for themselves. Trump threatens to cut off all US trade with Spain over refusal to use military bases in Iran war. You see, Spain declined US military use of its bases for strikes on Iran. Trump threatened a full trade embargo.
So we're going to cut off all trade with Spain. We don't want anything to do with Spain.
And so Prime Minister Sánchez responded with 3 words. No to war. Simple, right? And yet, Ground News shows 442 sources covering this story, 61 left, 62 right, and 109 centrist, with framing so different you'd be forgiven for thinking that they were reporting from separate planets. This level of insight is only possible thanks to Ground News, a website and app designed to make reading the news easier and more data-driven. Every day, they gather thousands of news articles from all across the world and organize them by story, with each coming with visual breakdowns of reporting bias, reliability, and ownership to give you a cleaner sense of how the news is being framed. Let's return to our story, and you can follow along at ground.news/rationality. The Hamilton Spectator, leaning left with high factuality, leads with Sanchez as the protagonist. Spain's Sanchez stands firm on opposition to war in Iran despite Trump's trade threat, warning the conflict risks playing Russian roulette with millions. One courageous leader holding the line against Washington. Then there's WLT Report, far right with low factuality. Breaking. President Trump cuts off all trade with Spain. Trump is tired of being treated unfairly, and Spain's PM is of course dismissed as their leftist PM. No geopolitics, no alliance considerations, no nuance, just a victory lap. And Euronews, centrist with very high factuality, simply reports no to war. Sanchez reaffirms Spain's stance on Trump's Iran campaign. No heroes, no villains, just what happened. Same event, 3 completely different stories. And without Ground News, most people would only ever see one of them. If you want to start seeing the full picture for yourself, right now you can get 40% off Ground News' Vantage plan at ground.news/rationality, or scan the QR code on screen now. You'll be supporting independent media and, indeed, this channel at the same time. Thanks. Alrighty, let's pick back up where Dave has just asked a question he will soon regret.
You're arguing that things economically were better under Joe Biden
at the end of his administration, absolutely.
Yeah, so can you give me an example of how?
Yeah, GDP growth was better off, real median wage growth was better off, inflation was better off at the end of his administration, unemployment was better off at the end of his administration. We had the worst year of job growth in the past 4 years, just this last year under Trump's administration. The inflation, 3.8% year over year since Trump got in office. We're seeing all of those economic indicators become worse off. Can you tell me anything that he's done to make it better off? You say it's broken for Democrats. It sounds like it's broken right now under Trump.
Damn. Dave insisted on an example, but the trouble with demanding evidence from this particular opponent is that he absolutely can deliver. Let me put some meat on those bones, starting with GDP growth. It rose by 2.8% in Biden's final full year, but was only 2.1% in Trump's first year back in office, with the last quarter of 2025 slowing to 0.5% annualized.
We're going to win so much, you may even get tired of winning.
As for real wages, they were growing while Biden left office, but they're slightly lower now. Real average hourly earnings were down 0.1% year on year in June. Unemployment has gone the same way, 4.1% at the end of Biden's term, 4.2% today, and it touched 4.4% back in December.
And you'll say, please, please, it's too much winning.
We had the worst year of job growth in the past 4 years, just this last year under Trump's administration.
Undersold, if anything. The United States added around 2 million jobs in 2024, but only 584,000 in 2025, a hiring year so weak that, by more than a few analysts, it's been ranked as the worst outside of a recession since 2003. Over 20 years.
We can't take it anymore.
Inflation, 3.8% year over year since Trump got in office.
Well remembered. 3.8% was the exact CPI print available on the day this episode of Jubilee was recorded. It rose to 4.2% the following month before falling back to 3.5% in June.
Mr. President, it's too much.
Every claim in that burst is solid.
Can you tell me anything that he's done to make it better off? You say it's broken for Democrats. It sounds like it's broken right now under Trump.
And I'll say, no, it isn't. We have to keep winning. We have to win more.
Dave, to his credit, is about to attempt an actual number of his own.
You say it's broken for Democrats. It sounds like it's broken right now under Trump.
Have you looked at the stock market?
And fair enough, this is Dave's strongest answer of the afternoon. It's real, it's on topic, it's checkable. Well played, Dave. Pass go, collect $200. But there's a tell in which metric he's reached for, don't you think? Because of everything on Parker's menu, Dave's instinct went straight to the one that tracks portfolios, a scoreboard for billionaires and shareholders, not the Americans wondering why the weekly shop keeps climbing. It's the same completely disconnected reflex Attorney General Pam Bondi showed in February.
So I really have just one question for you. How many of Epstein's co-conspirators have you indicted?
A few moments later.
The Dow is over $50,000. I don't know why you're laughing. You're a great stock trader, as I hear, Raskin. What does a Dow have to do with anything? That's what they just asked. Are you kidding?
When the best news you have is index news, you're telling everyone whose economy you really mean. But Parker doesn't waste time pointing that out. Instead, he points out a much bigger elephant in the room.
Have you looked at the stock market?
It's worse off in terms of growth in 2025 as compared to 2024. If you look at Dow Jones and S&P 500,
they're both up quite a bit right now,
but lower growth rate.
Well.
Parker goes straight for the jugular. You see, stock markets rise all the time. That is their default trajectory, decade over decade, whoever's in office. So the market being up isn't especially surprising. It's expected.
They're both up quite a bit right now.
The more informative question is how fast it's rising on their watch, and it's rising slower than under Biden.
They're both up quite a bit right now,
but lower
doing
growth
quite
rate.
well. You know, things don't happen overnight. So Donald Trump, for example, things don't. That's true. That's true. There's reality. There's actual reality. Like, you put policies into place and they don't just kick in the next day, right?
The laughter arrives mid-sentence, and he has to restart the line through it. And his recovery is, well, okay, you say that it was better under Biden, but things don't happen overnight. It's a familiar defense. Give a new administration time for its policies to take effect.
Hey, is that about ready?
These things, they take time.
And it's normally a reasonable one, but remember, he's supposed to be answering the question, what metrics have improved already?
What is one main metric that Donald Trump has made better off since he got in office?
He's moved the goalposts from what Trump has achieved to what Trump may achieve sometime later, without a clear time frame of when that improvement is supposed to arrive.
Things don't happen overnight.
Sure, the results are coming, trust me, bro. It's the IOU from his opening answer again.
There's reality. There's actual reality.
And we should savor that one, because it's an appeal to the empirical world from a man currently declining every available measure off it.
You put policies into place and they don't just kick in the next day, right?
Well, Donald Trump, been a year and a half.
Donald Trump said when the tariffs...
He said in a year, prices would be down 50% for electricity. Are they up right now?
Oh dear. The problem with Dave's appeal to a future improvement is that Trump himself had already set the timeline. And Parker has this fact ready to go. Arguing about how long policies take is a debate that can be run forever, so Parker doesn't touch it. He goes straight to Trump's own promise, made on the campaign trail in August of 2024 and repeated for months. Energy and electricity prices would be cut in half within 12 months of taking office.
Your energy bill will be cut from January 20th, will be cut by 50% in 12 months, okay? 50%.
I like you, man. You lie a lot.
Those 12 months have long since run out. And the answer to, are they up right now, is yes. Household electricity prices have risen by double digits since Trump took office, roughly twice the pace of inflation, with energy analysts laying a healthy share of that at the door of the administration's own policies. Unfortunately for Dave, the goalposts can't move when the man who planted them is on record bolting them to the floor.
Going to reduce energy and electricity prices, I will, by at least half within a 12-month period.
Dave's contribution, meanwhile, is a stack of hold-ons and no answer. He never actually addresses the challenge because he has to move on to a new point. The big frame, the one that every tariff defense eventually retreats into. 4 decades of grievance. Coming right up.
He said in a year, prices would be down 50% for electricity. Are they up right now?
Hold on. Donald Trump, when he brought in the whole idea of tariffs, would you agree that for the last 4 decades, we have had completely lopsided trade deals with all of these countries where they're tariffing and taxing our products that go to them, and they're getting sweet deals when they sell to the American public? Do you think that's a fair...
With the electricity bill safely abandoned, Dave finally lands a complete thought, and it arrives as a question.
Do you think that's a fair...
Catch the framing of that question, because it quietly assumes the conclusion, skipping past the factual debate and asking Parker to accept the premise first. That for 4 decades, America has been trapped in completely lopsided trade deals.
We have had completely lopsided trade deals.
A decade of hosting interviews will do that. When the numbers run out, the instinct is to hand the microphone across and manufacture agreement. And fair play on the one point. Line item asymmetries do exist, but completely lopsided with all of these countries. Before the 2025 tariffs went up, roughly 98% of US-Canada trade across the border was tariff-free, and that says it all.
Do you think that's a fair...
Didn't Trump address that with the USMCA?
Just like that, the whole case folds in on itself. The USMCA, the agreement Trump personally renegotiated in his first term, personally signed and personally billed as the finest trade deal ever struck, is Dave's answer to Dave's own grievance.
Didn't Trump address that with the USMCA, but he went against that when he didn't extend it through the context of his new trade agreement because he wanted to place tariffs on all of them again. And his tariffs that he's placing on are destroying our relationships with countries all around the world.
The flurry is, again, airtight. If the old deals were the scandal and Trump's own USMCA fixed them, then the 2025 tariffs weren't correcting a lopsided system, were they? They were Trump torpedoing his own agreement. The United States levied new tariffs against Canada and Mexico, its two USMCA partners, within weeks after the inauguration.
And his tariffs that he's placing on are destroying our relationships with countries all around the world.
It's
costing consumers here in this country. A Federal Reserve report just came out, indicated that we'd be below pre-pandemic levels of inflation if Donald Trump never imposed the tariffs in the first place. Meaning we'd be able to bring down interest rates and we'd be able to increase investment within our economy and bring more jobs back.
Okay, this is a bit of a bulldozer, but what Parker is doing here is simply refusing to let Dave stop the inflow of facts. Dave wants to continue his line of grievance politics and ignore the economic metrics that Parker has been challenging him on. And the evidence is substantial and devastating. Federal Reserve economists estimate that the tariffs implemented through November 2025 raised core goods prices by 3.1% through February of 2026, accounting for all of the category's excess inflation above its pre-pandemic rate and adding 0.8% to core prices overall. A separate New York Fed analysis found import prices rising nearly dollar for dollar with the tariffs. Basically, less tariff inflation means rate cuts. Rate cuts mean cheaper borrowing and more investment. Investment means jobs. The tariff policy Dave wants to support has directly led to a series of economic failures. Now, Dave does eventually finish the thought that he kept demanding room for, a grand theory of American victimhood, 7 continents wide and 80 years deep. And it deserves to play in full.
Meaning we'd be able to bring down interest rates and we'd be able to increase investment within our economy and bring more jobs back.
Hold on. When you say destroying our relationships with other countries, well, other countries were getting sweet deals, right? If Canada, which was charging crazy taxes and tariffs on our products that were going to them, and we were basically charging nothing back, how can we sell to their market? So if they're upset with us, right? So China is a little upset with right now. Upset with us. We're trying to get fairer deals. Canada, obviously under Carney, is upset with us because we're trying to get fairer deals. Donald Trump is trying to reset things. We were basically the world's piggy bank for the last, it's really basically post-World War II, and Donald Trump is trying to reverse that so that we will have fairer deals. If you told me that it was just zero across the board and there were no tariffs going any which way, I could completely get on board with that. But as long as countries are going to treat us unfairly, often while we foot the bill for their defense or a series of other things, and we give them foreign aid and everything else, well then we should have equal playing field going both directions.
As pure rhetoric, this is the best constructed thing that Dave says all session. He's painted a villain, the freeloading Allies, a time span stretching back to 1945, the hero doing the resetting, and even a gesture at a principle. 0 across the board, and he'd be on board. That offer is about to become important.
If you told me that it was just 0 across the board and there were no tariffs going any which way, I could completely get on board with that.
2 features to pull out of it, though. The first is what's happened to Parker's criticism inside of Dave's retelling. Destroying our relationships has been translated into they're upset because we're finally being fair, an unfalsifiable loop in which Allied fury is rebranded as evidence of progress. If Canada's happy, the deals were unfair. If Canada's furious, the deals must have been getting fairer.
Canada, obviously under Carney, is upset with us because we're trying to get fairer deals.
There is no observation anywhere in this space of possible worlds that would count against this scheme.
We were basically the world's piggy bank for the last, it's really basically post-World War II.
And the second is the piggy bank history itself, which skips a detail. The post-war trading order wasn't imposed on a hapless America. The United States wrote it at Bretton Woods and through the GATT, and has spent 8 decades enjoying the reserve currency privileges of authorship. Washington helped design the rules of the global economy at the very moment when the war had left its industrial rivals weakened and its own economy stronger than ever. Through lend-lease repayments and post-war settlements, through the very fact its factories remained intact while the rest of Europe had to rebuild its entire cities, the United States entered the second half of the 20th century with enormous economic advantages it used to become the center of the post-war economic order. The piggy bank wasn't dragged to the table and forced to sign a dodgy deal, it was the one holding the pen. But all of that is irrelevant, because even if Dave's grievances were accurate, how have Trump's policies actually fixed any of it?
And we give them foreign aid and everything else, well then we should have equal playing field going both directions.
What better deal did he get?
What?
What better deal did he get?
What do you mean? Several countries have already come back and we've...
Name any of the conditions that made the trade better off. Give me the specifics.
Ruthless. I love it. We get the same buffer word from the opening. What? Buying the same second, helping just a little.
What?
And then we're assured that several countries have already come back. Plural.
Name any of the conditions that made the trade better off. Give me the specifics.
Canada, I think they had something like a 60% tariff on cheese, literally on cheese, that was being sold from America, from Wisconsin to Canada. And that basically is zero right now. That's one little example. I think it's zero right now.
Okay, so that's a targeted tariff, not a universal tariff.
At last, a specific with a country and a number in it. Dave has finally placed a checkable claim on the record. So, I checked it. And you know, if you've ever wanted evidence that Dave genuinely doesn't know what he's talking about, rather than him being a rhetorical amateur, this is it. Canada's over-quota tariff on American cheese is not 60%. It's actually roughly 245%. But here's the thing. That isn't a blanket tariff on all cheese. It is the tariff applied to imports that exceed Canada's agreed quota. Within the quota, cheese enters at much lower rates, but once the limit is breached, the much higher tariff kicks in. So Dave has, to an extent, invented a figure that undersells his own grievance by a factor of 4, while also misunderstanding when the tariff applies.
And that basically is zero right now.
And it has not gone to basically zero either. Canada's parliament locked supply management beyond the reach of trade negotiations last year. But honestly, this is just so misleading. Dairy is one corner off the economy that Canada deliberately shields. Whole rural communities depend on it. And Dave is presenting that single protected line as though it represents the entire relationship, when, as we've seen, all but a sliver off the trade between the two countries crosses the border tariff-free. It's like, I don't know, coming back from a weekend away with friends and telling everyone that you sorted the whole trip because you did 90% of the driving, while the others paid for the petrol, bought the meals, and booked the rooms. One flattering detail presented as the whole picture. This is cherry-picking, selecting the evidence that fits the story and discarding the rest, and it is precisely the extrapolation that Parker refuses to let stand. Even if the story were true, from Rhine to core, pun intended, it would only ever justify a targeted, protected level answer, the tool Trump already had and abandoned in favor of taxing everything from everyone.
I'm a very stable genius.
Opposing that distinction is where Parker came in.
I'm against the universal tariff. So
he's been holding the category line since the handshake. Now it becomes the question that Dave really cannot answer.
Okay, so that's a targeted tariff, not a universal tariff. Can you name one country that had a universal tariff on us?
I think there are several countries that
Name
did.
one.
I think there are several countries
Name
that
one.
did. Honestly, I'm not sure, but I think there are several countries that did.
You have to appreciate Parker's consistent demand for precision. Trump's signature policy is a universal tariff. Everything from everyone, especially that island of penguins.
They're not sending their best.
For the reciprocity story to justify those tariffs, somebody must have been running a universal tariff on the United States. So, name one.
There are several countries that did.
And the answer comes back exactly as you expected.
Honestly, I'm not sure, but I think there are several countries that did.
Every damn time he makes a claim of certainty, he falls back to vibes the moment he's pressed. The reason no country is named is, of course, because there isn't one. Real-world tariff schedules vary product by product, just like with the cheese, and a flat, everything included tariff aimed at the United States wasn't something run by any trading partner at all. And it's worth noting this.
I'm not sure, but I think
this is the entire epistemology of Dave's politics. The conviction arrives first and travels confidently. The facts were meant to follow along later. but they're never there.
Honestly, I'm not sure, but I think there are several countries that did.
Okay, so why are we placing
zeroed out the tariffs.
So then why don't
I
we
think
place-
Argentina did, if I'm not mistaken. I think Israel did. I think a few other countries did.
There's a quiet substitution happening in Dave's answer here. Parker asked which countries had a universal tariff on the United States, a tariff covering everything that America sold them.
You name one country that had a universal tariff on us?
Dave starts naming countries that subsequently remove their remaining tariffs on American goods.
So then why don't we
zeroed
place
out
it-
the tariffs.
But that doesn't answer the question. A country can eliminate every tariff it still has without ever having imposed a universal tariff in the first place. Dave has moved from who taxed everything to who eventually reduced something, and those are entirely different claims. But let's take his example seriously, because one of them is self-destructive to Dave's argument. You see, Israel really did zero out every remaining tariff on American goods. April 2025, the day before Liberation Day, a genuine 0-for-0 offer from a close ally. And what did it earn? A 17% tariff imposed the next day. When Trump was asked whether Israel's zero tariff policy would get the duty lifted, his answer was maybe not.
Do you plan to reduce the tariffs that your government put on Israeli goods, 17%?
On where?
On Israeli goods.
Maybe not. Maybe not. Don't forget, we help Israel a lot.
Which brings us back to what Dave claimed in his big monologue.
If you told me that it was just zero across the board and there were no tariffs going any which way, I could completely get on board that.
A country did precisely that, unilaterally and in writing, and Trump tariffed it anyway, then defended doing so on camera.
Maybe not.
This single example punctures the entire reciprocity story, and remarkably, it's Dave himself who supplied the counterexample while trying to defend the policy.
I think Argentina did, if I'm not mistaken. I think Israel did. I think a few other countries did.
Why don't we put a proportional tariff on them, the same that they put on us, so that we can negotiate that down? It doesn't seem like Trump's looking for that.
What do you mean? That's exactly what Trump did.
Parker now proposes a hypothetical, and it's a stillman of Dave's position too. Proportional, country-matched tariffs as a negotiating lever.
Why don't we put a proportional tariff on them, the same that they put on us, so that we can negotiate that down?
And Dave's response is to insist that this is what Trump did.
Well, that's exactly what Trump did.
Except it's precisely what Trump did not do. A proportional system would tax each country at the same rate it taxes the United States, which, for zero-tariff Israel, works out to be a familiar number that is not 17. The baseline tariff applies to everyone, allies and offenders alike, at a floor no behaviour can duck underneath. That's the universal in universal tariff. The word this whole stretch has been failing to justify.
That's exactly what Trump did.
Let me just clarify. The tariffs are being paid by our consumers. So Trump, while trying to get his deals, is making inflation go up and making it worse off for you at the grocery store, worse off for you at the gas pump, worse off for you when you're trying to buy a house.
This is one of those moments where Parker leaves an opening. Dave has just claimed that Trump implemented precisely the proportional system that Parker proposed, and Parker never explains why that isn't true. Instead, he moves to the next problem: who actually pays these tariffs? It's a strong point, but it is a different one, and Parker translates it to the places where the costs are actually felt: the supermarket checkout and the mortgage meeting. Whatever Besant's negotiations eventually produce, American homeowners are paying the entry fee now, in advance, with no refund clause.
Worse off for you at the gas pump. Worse off for you when you're trying to buy a house. So can you, again, like you could mention before, can you name one metric that Trump's made better off since he got in office?
I'm just not sure the premise of what you're saying, because do you think we should just have free trade with everybody without any penalization?
I thought you were
going
like
either
libertarian.
way?
Don't you want free trade?
All right, the original question once again. Parker has kept it alive through the entire exchange. But Dave is not yet ready to abandon the tariff conversation. He's once again asking Parker a question about tariff philosophy, at which point Parker lands possibly the shortest identity audit ever conducted.
You were like libertarian. Don't you want free trade?
They've built an entire brand on classical liberalism, small state, free exchange, government out of the way.
I'm a small government guy, or I want it to be as small as it can be to function.
And he is currently defending the largest government intervention in American trade in generations. Parker is running the same test he's been running since the handshake, applied to Dave instead of Trump. What principles do you actually hold underneath the story?
Do you think we should just have free trade with everybody without any penalization?
I thought you were
going
like
either
libertarian.
way?
Don't you want free trade?
No, that's what I'm saying. So,
Okay.
so I think you're agreeing with me. What Donald Trump is trying
he
to do
hasn't overall decreased tariffs.
He's trying.
The Supreme Court did more to decrease tariffs than he did.
I think you're agreeing with me, Dave says, performing what we might call the annexation move. Faced with a challenge to his position, he simply declares that his opponent has joined him. Parker doesn't waste a syllable correcting him. He returns to the facts. Trump hasn't reduced tariffs overall.
The Supreme Court did more to decrease tariffs than he did.
In Learning Resources versus Trump, decided 6 votes to 3 on the 20th of February, the court ruled that the emergency powers law Trump used for his flagship tariffs didn't authorize tariffs at all. They were struck down. Within days, though, the administration had imposed a new 10% global tariff under a different law and launched a series of investigations designed to rebuild the rest. Even so, the average effective tariff rate was 2.3% when Trump took office and stands at roughly 7% now, about 3 times higher. The largest single reduction in Trump's tariffs came not from Trump, but from the Supreme Court ruling against him.
The Supreme Court did more to decrease tariffs than he did.
It doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah,
They're
you keep saying
negotiating
that.
these things.
Have we done anything in his office yet?
Yes.
What?
Yes. Scott Besson every day is negotiating with these other countries.
The promissory defense returns for its encore. There's no success to point to now, so Dave appeals to one that may arrive later. This time, however, Parker simply names the loop instead of entering it.
It doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah,
They're
you keep saying that.
negotiating.
Which is the efficient counter once repetition has replaced argument. All Parker has to do is point at the pattern. And when he asks what has actually been done, the answer is that a man is talking every day. Scott Besson negotiating daily is a job description. It is not an outcome. And Parker is about to demonstrate the difference by comparing those ongoing negotiations with an agreement that America had already secured and then tore up.
Scott Besson every day is negotiating with these other countries. You think that
I
he
think
can
the negotiations are worse off with the JCPOA. We have
you-
less political concessions right now than we had a decade ago under the JCPOA. So tell me, what political concessions have we got with the war with Iran since Trump started it?
With Scott Besson's negotiations now being offered as evidence of progress, Parker challenges that assumption by going straight to Iran. Negotiations only matter if they produce better terms, right? Well, the JCPOA, signed under Obama's administration, was a completed negotiation, a signed agreement with specific, measurable commitments restricting Iran's nuclear program. Here, it provides the benchmark for what successful diplomacy actually looks like. Parker's challenge is simple. After replacing that agreement with a new negotiating strategy, one largely consisting of Trump declaring victory and then dropping more bombs, what has actually been gained?
For example, nothing.
So tell me, what political concessions have we got with the war with Iran since Trump started it?
Well, right now, Iran literally exports no oil. Every day they are losing $500 million. So what you can do over time is you have a military adventure, which we had 40 days, which we took out their Air Force and their entire Navy and everything else. And now we completely control their economy.
Asked what Iran conceded, Dave answers with what Iran has lost. Again, he appeals to some future success, suggesting that enough pressure will eventually force concessions. But pressure itself is not a concession. Now, look, this Jubilee episode was recorded a couple of months ago, so let's check in with how it's going now.
5 months after the war with Iran began, President Trump is facing a growing strategic and political dilemma. Military pressure has done little to force Tehran to compromise. Iran is refusing key U.S. demands. The Strait of Hormuz remains closed. And many Americans, including many in Trump's MAGA base, are questioning the cost of this conflict.
Oh! Not great. Anyhow, let's look at the fact check on screen there.
Well, right now, Iran literally exports no oil.
No, not quite. Exports collapsed around 84% under the naval blockade, from roughly 1.8 million barrels a day in March to under 300,000 by May. Crushing, yes, but also not literally no oil. As for this claim,
every day they are losing $500 million. So
published estimates put Iran's losses somewhere between 100 and 150 million a day, which makes Dave's figure a 3 to 5-fold inflation. And the pattern from the cheese returns in reverse. The tariff that helped his case was pushed downwards, while the enemy losses that help his case are inflated upwards, both, as it happens, by roughly a factor of 4. Consistency of a kind.
We took out their Air Force and their entire Navy and everything else.
As for that, sure, Iran's conventional forces suffered serious losses, but entire is doing decorative work. Destroying assets is not the same as eliminating a country's ability to fight, negotiate, or impose costs. Iran's remaining capabilities, particularly its missile and drone arsenal, demonstrate this quite well. And none of this answers Parker's question. The headline version of military victory is being offered in place of the political concessions Dave was asked to name.
And now we completely control their
None of those
economy.
were concerned. What's the political concession since the beginning of the war?
What's the political concession from Iran since the beginning of the war?
Yes, name one.
Well, we're having negotiations with them right now.
And we haven't gotten anything?
We're having negotiations
so
with them right now.
So nothing.
Well, we're in a negotiation process.
And back comes the same non-answer, word for word, as though repetition might turn it into an answer. It doesn't. And what Dave finds instead is another IOU. We're having negotiations right now. It will happen soon. Trust me, bro.
So nothing.
Well, we're in a negotiation process.
Parker finally lays out, plain to see, the distinction that Dave has been avoiding. Negotiations are not concessions. A future possibility is not a present achievement. There has been nothing. No concessions. The negotiations that Dave has been banking everything on did eventually produce a memorandum on the 17th of June. It collapsed within 8 days. The ceasefire has since been declared over and the strikes have resumed. And as of this recording, the concession count stands where Parker left it. 0.
So nothing.
Well, we're in a negotiation process.
We've been in a war for 2.5 months now. We got no political concessions.
A war for 2.5 months. How long do you think wars are supposed to take? A decade ago, we had
a question answering a question about a question. And what a question it is coming from this particular political movement. No more endless wars was the banner that Dave's side marched under for a decade.
Great nations do not fight endless wars.
Its rebuttal position is now, how long do you think wars are supposed to take?
3 or 4.
For what? Days? Weeks? Months?
Yeah, maybe 5.
Parker doesn't even need to point out the arc of that. He's about to do something better. Produce the receipts from the last time the problem was addressed without a war.
A war for 2.5 months. How long do you think wars are supposed to take?
A decade ago, we had a limitation in terms of them enriching uranium to 3.7%. That was going to be in place until 2030. It would still be in place to this day.
Again, we started
the JCPOA.
And here they are. Under the JCPOA, the 2015 nuclear deal, Iran's enrichment was capped at 3.7%, a level useful for power stations and useless for weapons, with the most intrusive inspection regime ever negotiated sitting on top of it. Those restrictions ran to 2030, and, in some cases, beyond. Parker's counterfactual is the entire case in one clause. The cap had years left on the clock when Trump tore up the agreement in 2018. And the part that tends to get memory hold is that Iran kept to the cap for roughly a year after the United States withdrew, certified by the IAEA in report after report. It only began exceeding those limitations in 2019 once the sanctions were back and the deal's benefits were gone. The sequence isn't ambiguous. The caps were working, the withdrawal came anyway. Then the caps died.
It would still be in place to this day.
We started
the JCPOA.
We started with this. They admitted they were enriching past that point.
After the JCPOA.
Steve Witkoff said 2 or 3 days before the war started that they admitted they were enriching more.
After the JCPOA, Parker says. And that is the whole rebuttal needed, because Dave's evidence for tearing up the deal is behaviour that started once the deal was torn up. The enrichment past 3.7% is real, and it dates, all of it, from after the pullout. He's citing the consequences of the policy as the justification for the policy. Put the events back in order and the argument disappears. On Witkoff, Trump's envoy to these very negotiations, Dave's memory of the timing is roughly right. 6 days before the war began, Witkoff claimed that Iran had admitted to holding roughly 60% enriched uranium for 11 bombs worth of material. 2 things about that claim earn a place here. First, admitted is theatre. The 60% stockpile had been publicly documented by the IAEA for years. Iran declaring it across a negotiating table revealed nothing the inspectors hadn't already counted. And second, the 60% is not weapons grade. The 11 bombs are hypothetical until a further enrichment run that, per the US government's own assessments, was never ordered. The point is that, had Trump not pulled out of the deal, there is no indication that Iran would have enriched that high.
Steve Witkoff said 2 or 3 days before the war started that they admitted they were enriching more.
Also, when Trump pulled out of the agreement, and then the original strike that we made a year ago, they haven't been building up since then.
You also have to go on the assumption.
To DNI,
why is it that you believe?
Parker completely ignores Dave, stacking the timeline through the interruptions. The withdrawal, the strikes on the enrichment sites a year before this war, and then the build-up documented since. The post-withdrawal expansion of Iran's program is documented in the annual threat assessment of the Haines era, and the central judgment that Iran was not building a nuclear weapon continued under Gabbard. Dave's response to being confronted with his own government's intelligence is where this exchange stops being about Iran at all and becomes a reading of how he decides what's true.
According to the DNI,
why is it that why would you believe the Iranian theocratic regime?
Parker has just cited the director of national intelligence.
According to the DNI,
why is it that you believe?
Dave responds as though he cited the Ayatollah's press office.
Why would you believe the Iranian theocratic regime?
The source has been swapped for a more attackable one, and the argument proceeds against the substitute. This is a straw man. Parker has never asked Dave to believe Tehran. He has asked Dave to believe the United States' own intelligence agencies, and that is a much harder wave away, which is why the wave had to be aimed somewhere else.
Why would you believe the Iranian theocratic regime? Why would you believe that they are doing right?
That's the director of national intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, appointed by Donald Trump. So explain to me why you don't believe her.
This is why you cite sources instead of vibes. Appointed by Donald Trump removes the partisan exit before Dave can reach for it. This is no Biden-era handover. It is the president's own choice, confirmed and sworn, given the assessment Parker's just described.
So explain to me why you don't believe her.
Listen, Marco Rubio.
Why don't you believe her?
Hold on.
Why don't you believe the entire U.S. intelligence committee? Why do you think they're all lying?
So, are you saying that Donald Trump just ignored the entire U.S. intelligence community?
Yes,
no,
literally that's what he did.
No, he didn't.
Dave builds what he clearly believes is a reductio. Surely you aren't saying that the president simply ignored the entire US intelligence community, and Parker walks straight through it. Yes, that is what I'm saying.
Yes, literally that's what he did.
And this only works because the supposedly absurd conclusion happens to be documented history. Asked directly about Gabbard's sworn testimony that Iran was not building a nuclear weapon, Trump said on camera, "I don't care what she said."
How close do you personally think that they were to getting one? Because Tulsi Gabbard testified in March that the intelligence community said Iran wasn't building a nuclear weapon.
I don't care what she said. I think they were very close to having one.
When the same DNI later assessed that Iran had not rebuilt its program after the strikes, Trump publicly claimed the opposite. So when Parker says literally, he's using the word in its dictionary sense. A reductio ad absurdum has one essential component, the absurdity. Dave has mistaken shocking for false. If the outrageous restatement of your opponent's position is simply what happened, the correct answer is exactly the one that Parker gives. Yes.
Yes, literally that's what he did.
No, he didn't.
Yes.
That's okay, so that's an interesting disconnect that we have. I mean, Marco
Then why
Rubio,
did they contradict each other?
Marco Rubio very clearly laid out what was going on here.
An interesting disconnect that we have, as though whether the president dismissed his own intelligence chief is a matter of perspective, like musical taste. A disconnect is what you have over values. When the dispute concerns a documented event that happened on camera, there is no difference of perspective available. One of you is simply wrong. On the 2nd of March, Rubio said the United States knew an Israel strike was coming, knew it would trigger attacks on American forces, and therefore acted first to avoid higher casualties.
We knew that there was going to be an Israeli action. We knew that that would precipitate an attack against American forces. And we knew that if we didn't preemptively go after them before they launched those attacks, we would suffer higher casualties and perhaps even higher those killed.
Well, that strikes me as pretty damn clear, doesn't it you? Pressed on the account in the same exchange, Rubio immediately qualified it.
The U.S. was forced to strike because of an impending Israeli action?
No, let me two things I would say. Number one is, no matter what, ultimately this operation needed to happen. That's the question of why now. But this operation needed to happen because Iran in about a year or a year and a half would cross the line of immunity, meaning they would have so many short-range missiles, so many drones, that no one could do anything about it because they could hold the whole world hostage.
Right. Israel, he now says, explains why the United States acted when it did, but the operation had to happen anyway, for a different reason. And the following day, Trump contradicted the original account outright.
The next day. So, if anything, I might have forced Israel's hand.
After this quick shift, Congress spent the spring formally demanding an explanation that stayed still. So, Marco Rubio very clearly laid out what was going on here, is not a description the record supports, and the deeper mechanism deserves attention. The DNI's formal sworn assessment is inadmissible, but a cabinet's official shifting talking points are gospel. The difference cannot be seniority or access to the intelligence. Gabbard has both. What remains is convenience, and we'll see that principle complete itself shortly.
Marco Rubio very clearly laid out what was going on here. And by the way, Donald Trump and every president for the last 40 years has said that Iran will not get a nuclear bomb, right? Every president has said that. Joe Biden said no. Remember, Kamala Harris said no or
the JCPOA
don't, right?
limited it to a greater extent. Okay. Why didn't you address that point?
40 years of presidents agreeing that Iran shouldn't get a nuclear bomb, which is true, and also completely beside the point. The goal was never in dispute. Everyone from Reagan to Biden wanted Iran to remain non-nuclear. The argument is about which policy actually restricted their nuclear program. And on that question, there's a signed answer sitting in the archives with Trump's exit signature on it. Parker grants the harmless premise and points back to the actual issue.
Yeah, the JCPOA limited it to a greater extent.
And then he does something that he's been building towards this whole time. He audits the conversation itself from within the conversation.
Why didn't you address that point?
Earlier, Parker repeatedly returned to his questions and identified the loops. Now he's starting flagging each dodge as it happens. Dave can still evade the point, yes, but he can no longer do so unnoticed.
Why didn't you address that point?
Again, you are going on the assumption that you can trust these random inspectors that are going into these places.
IAEA?
Literally,
They're random inspectors?
The
IAEA is the International Atomic Energy.
With all due respect, I think that trusting some of these international things that they somehow have America's interests or the West's interests in mind, I think is a kind of faulty, it's just a faulty premise.
A conspiracy laid bare. The International Atomic Energy Agency, the UN's nuclear verification body, the organization through which every major non-proliferation framework operates, whose inspectors the United States helped train, fund, and equipped, has been recast as a van full of strangers. What's amazing here is the complete reversal of the usual trust hierarchy. A UN body made up of experts from around the world and specifically created to monitor compliance with non-proliferation treaties and safety standards is somehow deemed untrustworthy. But the government, the very institution Dave normally views with suspicion, is suddenly beyond question because it's being ran by Trump and his allies. Apparently, they can be trusted to put America's interests first, and definitely not their own.
The president reported more than $1 billion in income related to his family's crypto ventures and meme coins last year.
And with that, the standard Dave has been applying stands in the open. Wyckoff's account of what Iran supposedly admitted in a negotiating room is accepted without question. Rubio's shifting rationale is accepted. Gabbard's assessment, the wider intelligence consensus, and the IAEA's physical verification are all rejected. The standard of proof depends entirely on which side the evidence supports. That is special pleading. One rule for claims that help, a stricter rule for claims that hurt, with no relevant justification for the difference beyond the difference it makes.
I think that trusting some of these international things that they somehow have America's interests or the West's interests in mind, I think is a kind of faulty, it's just a faulty premise, I would say.
So the international actors that are lying, they don't actually have legitimate surveillance over their nuclear enrichment facilities?
No, they don't.
Okay, so
they don't.
You think
Parker does here what he did with So Nothing. He reads the position back plainly and lets Dave own it. And Dave does. Emphatically.
No, they don't.
Okay, so
they don't. They have. What do you mean? They were buried under mountains. They were buried underground.
Dave is referring to Fordo, the enrichment facility built into the rock near Guam. And oh boy, is this a spectacular own goal? Because Fordo was constructed secretly before the nuclear deal, and the JCPOA placed it under IAEA monitoring, with inspectors and surveillance equipment inside the facility. So the site Dave points to as proof that inspectors cannot work is the one agreement successfully placed under inspection. The arrangement that kept international eyes inside that mountain is the one that Trump abandoned.
They were buried under mountains.
And that's the time. The buzzer catches Dave mid-geology, and the exchange ends where it began, with the initial question still unanswered. Now, before we close out, I want to take us to near the end of this Jubilee episode, where Dave offers a closing reflection so perfectly aimed at his own foot that I had to show you.
I think that the disconnect between the online world and the real world is getting larger and larger. And so that was why I kind of wanted to do this in the first place, because I was like, I exist in the online world. I talk to a lot of people that I enjoy talking to, but it's hard to talk to lefties. But if these guys would just tone it down a little bit, they have no idea what conservatives think. They have no idea how generous and kind and decent most conservatives are and that they want the same things. At the end of Trump's second term, there may be a desire for something a little more normal. And I say that as a Trump supporter, right? Like, I think he was necessary. We needed him to break something that we all could kind of see. And I think there could be a moment after this, things start feeling a little more the way we thought politics were.
Where to begin?
I think that the disconnect between the online world and the real world is getting larger and larger.
That was the diagnosis of the day. Dave just misidentified the patient. He said it himself without hearing it.
I exist in the online world.
He does. It's a world of trajectories and stories and $400,000 monthly invoices nobody asked about.
I was the victim in this crazy fraud scheme.
And the real world, the one made of CPI prints, court dockets, and inspection logs, kept arriving in the mouth of a graduate student who had done the reading. The disconnect was on full display.
They have no idea what conservatives think.
Across those few minutes, Parker knew the USMCA was Trump's own negotiated trade agreement. He knew what a libertarian is supposed to believe about free trade.
You were like libertarian. Don't you want free trade?
He knew which envoy made which claim, what the intelligence agencies concluded, and which inspection regime produced the figures. The man opposite him, the conservative, couldn't name the countries his central tariff policy was supposedly responding to.
Name one. Honestly, I'm not sure, but I think there are several countries that did.
And needed the letters IAEA explained to him mid-debate.
These random inspectors that are going into these places.
IAEA?
Literally,
yeah. Random inspectors?
All right.
The IAEA is the International Atomic Energy.
What we see repeatedly is one side arriving with information prepared to counter the other's specific claims. And it is never Dave. It seems the lefties, at the very least, know exactly what he thinks. Or at least what his team thinks. And then comes the confession that outranks everything else in the episode.
I think he was necessary. We needed him to break something.
Well, on that, at least, we have total agreement. Something certainly broke. Parker spent his entire rotation itemizing the results. And they are as follows.
The big beautiful bill was just passed last year and it's kicking in now, right? It's kicking in now.
What's kicked in? Inflation at 3.8% when this taped. 4.2% now.
Canada, I think they had something like a 60% tariff on cheese, literally on cheese. And that basically is zero right now.
245% on over-quota cheese. Not zero. Not even close.
Things don't happen overnight. So Donald Trump, for example...
18 months in, his own president's deadline was 12.
50% in 12 months.
Well, right now, Iran literally exports no oil. Every day, they are losing $500 million.
Around 300,000 barrels a day, and losses closer to 100 million. Basically, the whole debate with Dave went almost exactly like this.
Calm down, get a hold of yourself.
Stewardess, please let me handle this.
Calm down, now get back to your seat. I'll take care of this. Calm down. Calm down. Get a hold of yourself.
Doctor, you're one on the phone. Everything's gonna be all right. Please.
Sister, please, I'll handle this.
Yourself.
I gotta get out of here. Out of here. I gotta get out of here.
We're having negotiations with them right now.
The memorandum those negotiations produced lasted 8 days. The war is back on as I record this. That is what break something achieved. And the closing IOU is the most fitting touch of all. Normality, Dave assures us, may arrive later. The good outcome is parked, as ever, somewhere over the horizon in the only tense his case has ever lived throughout this entire exchange. The future, with no metric that can contradict it because it hasn't happened yet. So the lesson, the one that Parker has been teaching from the very beginning, from the first handshake, is to bring the argument back to something real. A claim should be able to produce evidence when asked. A metric that improved, a universal tariff that existed, a political concession that was won. Not vibes and not let's wait and see.
Things don't happen overnight. So Donald Trump, for example, things don't, that's true.
It's not true.
When every answer becomes soon, or let me explain something else, the problem isn't that the evidence is complicated. The problem is that the evidence simply isn't there. What we see from Dave is loyalty to the party line, performing an impression of knowledge and collapsing under the smallest possible request.
So what's the main metric that he made better off?
What?
What's the main metric that he made better off? GDP, unemployment, inflation?
What would happen if, for some reason, we ignore somebody unlocked 100% of the cerebral capacity?
Do you have any idea?
Listen.
Sometimes it really is that simple. You just need Parker's first move and the patience to keep making it. Name one. And it does help that Parker is very prepared and does tend to remember quite a lot, in fact. So, maybe we can't all be Parker, but we can damn well try. Anyhow, as always, thank you kindly for the view, and an extra special thank you to everyone who supports the channel, including today's sponsor, Ground News.